Welcome to Sober Talk. I'm Dennis and I have lived experience of alcohol. If you or anyone you know is struggling with alcohol, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 222222 or check out their website on aa.org.au. I'll just run through the preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other. They must solve their common problems and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses or opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
Good morning, friends. I'm Dennis and I'm an alcoholic. My drinking career started, alcohol affected me a long time before I ever drank. Both my parents were heavy drinkers, and it was a very dysfunctional family. There was a lot of domestic violence. I was brought up in the northeast of England, and it was just chaos at weekends. Not every weekend, but certainly when it did happen. There was four kids, and we used to have to go and hide and keep away from all the drama. And but even so, that seeing that, and I never associated. I didn't seem to be able to associate alcohol with that. But at 14, with the boys, I was drinking in the pubs down the bottom end of town, and my drinking career had started. And like all of us in the beginning, it was lots of fun. You got into a bit of strife here and there, and you'd maybe, as you got a bit older, you'd probably get locked up for the odd night or whatever the case may be. But by the time I was 18, alcohol was a big part of my life. It was always looking forward to the weekends, and quite often we used to get paid on a Thursday night and you'd miss the Friday at work, because you just couldn't make it. But the drinking carried on, and I got married at about 21, and that didn't last long. And now I look back on it, it was alcohol related. But in that time, I'd done quite a few geographics. I believe that when you pick, I picked a drink about 14, and I never matured. I was still that boy of 14, and responsibilities and everything I couldn't handle. So, I tended to run away from situations, and so that marriage finished, and I ended up meeting another girl and moving to Australia, and it wasn't being an alcoholic and alcoholic thinking. I didn't do a lot of planning on coming to Australia, but I ended up here. And it wasn't long before I was into the scheme of things here, and I just, I loved it, I love the drinking sessions and all the rest of it. The barbecues and going around people's houses, and they'd give you a beer instead of a cup of tea, and it was magic. Just one alcoholic needs a bit of encouragement, and but me drinking, the kids come along and mortgages and all that, and I changed occupations. I work for local government, and me drinking. I was a daily drinker and a blackout drinker. Towards the end of me drinking, it was a flagon of port or a bottle of port or a cask of wine. I drank for the voltage, not the vintage. And, the more I could get into me, the better it was. And quite often I used to pass out on the lounge and not get to bed and go to work the next morning. And, me drinking was just bizarre. Towards the end of me drinking, I tried doctors, counsellors and detox, and I didn't really, we've got a third tradition in the fellowship, and it says, that the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, and at that stage I didn't have a desire. But I did hit what we call a rock bottom again. I'd had many rock bottoms. I hit another one, and just fortunate enough for me, I was working with a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know. I knew nothing about Alcoholics Anonymous, but he invited me along to a meeting. On a Monday morning, he called me. Had really put a performance on at the weekend at a social function. He invited me along to he said he'd take me to a meeting. And one of the things he said to me that morning was, if you're not drinking, you're thinking about drinking, you've got a problem. And I certainly identified. So, Brendan picked me up and took me to a meeting, and, that was over 30 years ago, and he took me along. He used to pick me up on a regular basis, come to my house, pick me up, take me to the meeting, and I thought it was great. And, one of the blokes that used to go to one of the meetings, he often used to say to me, keep coming back, son, it'll get better. And I said, oh, yeah, for sure, yeah. And it did, within a short period of time, life got better. The boss was happy, the missus was happy. I wasn't drinking, I was happy, and I thought I'm cured, so I left. And, within a short period of time, I picked the drink up again. And it's a bit like the mafia. When you leave, bad things happen. And that drink was in the end, cost me everything. There's a little word in Alcoholics Anonymous, yet. You were eligible too. And I never thought it would happen to me, but it did. The missus left, and the kids, she took the kids overseas, back to the UK. Not that my kids are English or British. But, my drinking just went bizarre. We sold the house and the cars and everything, and had a pocket full of money, and I decided myself to go back to the UK. I got a one-way ticket and ended up back there and caused chaos over there. Just alcoholic in full flight with a pocket full of money. And, I don't know how long I was there, and there's lots of things I can't remember. But I know it was devastating. The ripple effect of one alcoholics drinking is incredible. I affected people. The ripple effect is unbelievable. And I affected everybody that I come in contact with. And eventually, eventually my mother was saying to me, I thought you were leaving. I thought you were going back to the UK. Everybody wanted rid of me, and the thing I found in that period of time that I was drinking was that once you've been along to Alcoholics Anonymous, you're drinking with a conscience, because you know the fact that there is a solution. There's a solution to the problem of alcoholism if you attend Alcoholics Anonymous. And, I ended up booking a flight back to Australia, and I can't remember getting on the plane. I can't remember getting off it. And I woke up in the Royal Adelaide Hospital, shackled to a bed, weighing about 54 kilo, and very, very sick, very, very yellow, red eyes, shaking, shivering. My liver was stuffed. My whole body was actually stuffed. But the miracle of it all is that the member of Alcoholics, Brendan, he found out I was in hospital through a series of people. We called it a God job. I called it a God job. And he, not that it's a religious program, it's a spiritual program, but, he come to see me in hospital, and when I got out of hospital, I got back to Alcoholics Anonymous. And in the early days, it wasn't easy. I'd lost everything, and I was sleeping on my mate's shed floor on the mattress. But once again, people said to me, keep coming back, son, it'll get better. And I used to think, I know it will, but when? And, and some of the things that were going, I couldn't sleep. I used to get up and walk for miles and miles and miles. There was just so much garbage in my head. I couldn't live with it, and the fact that what had happened to my family and everything else. And, when I landed in England, I wasn't there long, and my wife at the time wanted a divorce. I got divorced there. So, but, people, as I say, people say, keep coming back. And I'd done as many meetings as I could. I used to get buses, and I couldn't drive. I had cataracts in both eyes and couldn't see properly. I had to have operations on my eyes. And, I eventually, I was at a meeting one day, and a fella, Peter T, said he didn't like praying, but he liked the results. And I thought, you know what, I might start praying. So I longed to see my kids again and just be part of, and by this time I'd got a trust place in Davern Park, and, life was getting better, and, certain things happened, and, I was in touch. I got in touch with me ex in the UK, and just a phone call one day. I just happened to, for some reason, I phoned her, and she answered the phone. Once again, it was a bit of a God job, and she said to me, "What do you want?" I said, "Well, I might as well, I just want to know how you're going, how you're doing." She said, "Well, I might as well tell you we're going to come back to Australia." Well, we can't come back because we got no money, so I was still employed at the time. I was on sick leave, obviously, but I decided to give up work and take my superannuation and send the money over for them to fly back to Australia. And that was just one little way of making amends. And they did come back to Australia and come back into my life. And I've kicked on in Alcoholics Anonymous. I still do plenty of meetings. In the early days, I'd try and do a meeting every night. I'm better off, in Alcoholics pretend to be an alcoholic than being outside pretending not to be. And, one of the analogies of alcoholism my mate, a friend says, Henry says, is that, alcoholic, there can be a bottle of beer in one corner and his family in the other, and he's got a choice to make, and every time he'll pick the bottle of beer. And that's exactly what I did, and, but I've stuck around Alcoholics Anonymous. It's been over 29 years now, and I'm not bragging, I'm just saying that it's working for me. It's working for me on a daily basis. Them kids come back. My son went to play his chosen sport for Australia eventually, and, I've got 6 grandkids today. I'm involved with Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm involved with this radio station. And It's just an easy, simple life. This is the easier, softer way and the cheaper way. I reckon Alcoholics Anonymous is the most expensive club in the world to join. And and sometimes it's not. We're not talking about money. We're talking about things that alcohol is a great remover, and it just doesn't remove paint off fences and things. It removes. It removes families, cars, you name it, and it's a simple program for complicated people. We've got people that have been around in Adelaide, around, I think one fella, Adelaide House, has just celebrated 59 years of sobriety. So, and it's worked for him, it's worked for me. I'm a member of a group, I've been a member of that group. There's lots of meetings in Adelaide. I think there's about 70 or 80 a week or something in Adelaide, and at all different times of the day. There's also Zoom, which is easily to connect to. There's a number you can always phone for any information. That number's 1300 22 2222. Pretty simple number to remember, and if you phone that number, it's 24 hours a day. It's a 24-hour-a-day helpline. You'll get another member or alcoholic on the other end, and we find in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's said everywhere, that there's only an alkie can understand an alkie. And how true is that? That, we have a spiritual connection. As I said, I think earlier, it's not a religious program, it's a spiritual program. And it works if you work it, just a little bit of me. I got involved in travel and in Alcoholics Anonymous. I love travelling. And I've done a meeting in every state in Australia. I've been overseas and done meetings. They do what they call in Alcoholics Anonymous tag-alongs, where a bunch of members will all get together and travel around the country. And, it's enabled me. I've been to... There's actually a big... tag along and what they call a roundup in Darwin. I've been up there about 15 times, and I just love it. I love the camaraderie of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've found my tribe. I've found the people that understand me. We've all trudged, through the sludge and the muck and the dirt to get here. Nobody comes into Alcoholics Anonymous and says, I've seen an advert for Alcoholics Anonymous and I'd just love to join. We're all beaten to the ground and all hit the rock bottom and end up, hopefully, in Alcoholics Anonymous and hopefully stay. So it's a day at a time. That's all you have to do. It is one day at a time. There's no... dues or fees for a membership, We contribute what we can. And it's a great show. Anyway, I hope if anybody's listening, don't forget that number, 1300 22 2222. And I'll keep coming back. It's working for me on a daily basis. And thanks for listening and good luck.
We have local meetings for the full week in the local area. Monday's gala meeting at 8 o'clock. Tuesday is Elizabeth East at 8 o'clock. Wednesday is Elizabeth East at 8 o'clock. Thursday is Two Wells at 8 o'clock. And Friday is Salisbury at 8 o'clock. There's a meeting at Daveron Park at 12 o'clock, and on Sunday there's a meeting in Salisbury at 7 o'clock, and many other meetings in the area. For details of your local meetings, please phone 1300 22 2222. And once again, if anyone you know is struggling with alcohol issues, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 22 2222. The website is aasouthaustralia.org.au.